Daniel Cole never imagined he would raise a child alone. His wife Claire had been the heart of their little family, but when she passed away suddenly, Daniel was left staring at a crib with a 2-year-old who needed him for everything. He worked nights at the shipping company, took side jobs on weekends, and taught himself how to braid hair from YouTube just so Lily could walk into kindergarten with confidence. Despite the struggles, there was always something special about Lily. She wasn't like other kids who begged for the newest toys or glued themselves to cartoons. Instead, she was fascinated by sounds, by voices. At 4, she surprised Daniel by counting to 10 in Spanish after overhearing a neighbor. At 6, she begged him to check out French storybooks from the library. By the time she was 10, she was dabbling in Mandarin, Russian, and Italian. Daniel didn't understand how she managed it. He could barely keep up with English grammar, but Lily absorbed languages like a sponge in water. Every evening she'd sit at their worn-out kitchen table, the glow of his old laptop reflecting in her eyes as she repeated foreign words with startling accuracy. One night Daniel asked, "Why do you spend all your free time learning these, sweetheart? Don't you want to just play?" Lily had looked up with a smile far too wise for her age. "Because the world is big, Daddy, and I want to talk to everyone in it." Daniel laughed and kissed the top of her head, not realizing that those words would one day change both of their lives. At work, Daniel was known as reliable, the guy who never called in sick, never cut corners, and always did his share without complaint. That's why it shocked him when his boss, Richard Harrison, the hard-nosed CEO of the company, approached him personally one afternoon. "Cole," Harrison said, straightening his tie, "you're a dependable man. I respect that." Daniel blinked, unsure why the most powerful man in the company was talking to him. "Thank you, sir." Harrison leaned closer. "I have a dinner tomorrow night with international investors. The deal we're discussing is worth $50 million. But there's a problem. These partners don't like professional translators. They think it makes the negotiations cold. They want someone who can speak directly to them in their own language." Daniel frowned. "That sounds complicated. How does this involve me?" Harrison's sharp gaze softened for a moment. "Word has reached me about your daughter. She speaks several languages, doesn't she?" Daniel stiffened. "She's only 14, sir. She's just a kid." "Sometimes kids can do what adults can't," Harrison replied firmly. "Bring her. If she delivers, she'll save this deal, and I promise you, it will change your life." That night, Daniel paced the living room while Lily sat cross-legged on the couch, waiting for his decision. He didn't want her to feel pressured, didn't want her to be caught in the middle of high-stakes business. But when he explained the situation, Lily's eyes lit up. "Daddy," she said, reaching for his hand, "you always tell me to believe in myself. Let me do this. For you. For us." Daniel looked at her, at the confidence radiating from her young face, and for the first time he realized she wasn't just his little girl anymore. She was ready for something bigger. The dinner night. The following evening, Daniel and Lily entered a luxury hotel ballroom unlike anything they had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, and servers in white gloves carried trays of delicacies Daniel couldn't even name. Powerful men and women in tailored suits filled the long table where the meeting would take place. Daniel adjusted his borrowed blazer, feeling out of place. But Lily, dressed in a simple navy dress, walked forward with the quiet grace of someone born for this moment. The negotiations began, and just as Harrison had warned, the professional translator stumbled. Mr. Zhang from Beijing frowned at a mistranslation. Monsieur Leclerc from Paris muttered something under his breath. Senora Alvarez from Madrid shook her head. Mr. Petrov from Moscow crossed his arms in irritation. Tension grew thick. The deal was slipping through Harrison's fingers. He glanced at Daniel and gave a subtle nod. Daniel's heart pounded as Lily straightened in her chair. Then, in flawless Spanish, she greeted Senora Alvarez, who blinked in surprise before breaking into a warm smile. Switching effortlessly to French, Lily addressed Monsieur Leclerc, earning a chuckle of approval. She turned to Petrov, rolling her R's with crisp Russian precision that made the man lean forward, suddenly interested. And finally, she spoke to Zhang in Mandarin, her tone steady and respectful. The room fell silent. Daniel sat frozen, overwhelmed with pride. His daughter wasn't just gifted, she was extraordinary. For the first time that night, the meeting shifted. The investors leaned in, smiling, engaging directly. The ice was broken. As the investors realized the young girl at the table could speak to each of them in their own language, the atmosphere shifted. What had started as stiff, guarded negotiations began to flow with warmth and curiosity. Monsieur Leclerc leaned forward, smiling at Lily. "Mademoiselle, your French is more elegant than many of my colleagues. Where did you learn?" "From books in our public library," Lily replied confidently in French, "and from listening to Parisian radio online." Señora Alvarez laughed in Spanish. "Increíble! Such discipline for someone so young." Daniel sat stunned, his heart swelling with pride, but he could sense Harrison watching with sharp eyes. The CEO knew that while the ice had been broken, the hardest part was still ahead, negotiating the terms. And these investors weren't known for being gennaro. As the meeting continued, tension returned. Mr. Zhang expressed concerns in Mandarin about shipment reliability. Petrov in Russian complained about profit-sharing percentages. Leclerc and Alvarez argued softly over contractual clauses. Each worried the other would gain an advantage. The translator looked lost, fumbling notes. All eyes shifted to Lily. Daniel wanted to pull her out, to protect her, but before he could, she raised her hand politely. "If I may," she said, switching languages with ease, "perhaps there's been a misunderstanding." She explained, in Mandarin, that Zhang's concern about shipments was based on an earlier mistranslation. She then turned to Petrov in Russian, clarifying that the profit-sharing clause had flexibility if delivery speed was guaranteed. Finally, she soothed the tension between Alvarez and Leclerc, offering a compromise by reframing the contract wording in both Spanish and French, so neither party felt disadvantaged. The investors listened, nodding, their expressions softening. What had been a fractured, contentious negotiation began to realign. The turning point. At one point, Petrov leaned back, folding his arms, and spoke in Russian with a skeptical edge. "Why should we trust a child?" The room grew tense. Daniel's stomach dropped. But Lily didn't flinch. She replied calmly in Russian, "Because honesty doesn't need age, it only needs truth. And I speak to you with no agenda, only clarity." The stern man studied her, then let out a booming laugh. "This girl is sharper than most businessmen I know." 2 hours later, after countless back and forths that Lily navigated with astonishing precision, the contracts were finally signed. Harrison leaned back in his chair, relief washing over him. The $50 million deal was secured, something that had seemed impossible only hours earlier. The investors left with handshakes and smiles, several of them giving Lily heartfelt compliments in their native tongues. When the room was finally empty, Harrison turned to Daniel. His usually stern face softened with genuine admiration. "Cole," he said, "I've been in business 30 years. I've hired Ivy League graduates and flown in the best consultants money can buy. And tonight, your daughter did what none of them could." Daniel looked at Lily, who was beaming with quiet pride. "She's always been remarkable," he said softly. Harrison leaned forward. "From this day on, you'll never have to worry about struggling again. I'm offering you a senior position here with triple your current salary. And, Lily, when she's ready, this company will sponsor her education anywhere she wants in the world." Walking home that night, Daniel couldn't stop glancing at Lily. He still saw his little girl, but now he also saw a young woman with a gift powerful enough to change lives. "Daddy," Lily said, slipping her hand into his, "did I do okay?" Meet her eyes. His throat tightened and he whispered, "You didn't just do okay, sweetheart. You saved us." For the first time in years, Daniel felt the heavy weight of struggle lifting from his shoulders. His daughter's gift, born from quiet evenings, old library books, and sheer determination, had not only saved a $50 million deal, but had opened a new future for them both. And as they walked under the city lights, Daniel knew one thing for certain. Sometimes the power of a child's habit, passion, and courage could change the course of an entire life.